Hello and welcome to this tutorial, and in this tutorial we are going to learn how to develop or how to use Google Maps in your Android application. So let's say you are developing an Android application in which you need to use maps to display some locations. So for example, let's say you are developing a taxi app. So in that case, you'll need to make use of the Google Maps in your Android application. So it is important to know how actually Google Maps can be used in our Android application. So the first thing which we need to do is that we need to start a new Android Studio project. And before even starting the new Android Studio project, we actually need to download the Google Play services. So in order to download Google Play services, what we need to do is that we need to go to the SDK manager and we actually need to install the package for the Google Play services. And I'm going to show you how to exactly download the Google Play services after setting up the project, but actually you need to set up or actually you need to download the Google Play services and install it even before you start a new Android Studio project. So let's go ahead and start a new Android Studio project, and let's name this as my map application. Then click next, select API level 15, click next. And here, instead of going with a blank activity, as we are using Google Maps, we will select a Google Map activity. So in that case, the main activity of our application is going to be the Google Map activity. Then click next, then finally click finish. So once everything is set up, your code is going to look like this. And the thing is that it is actually going to provide us with a unique key which we actually need to use in order to generate a key. So even before creating an Android application which actually utilizes maps, what we need to do is that we need to actually obtain permission from Google so as to use their API, which is nothing but application programmable interface for the Google Maps. And one more thing you need to remember is that if you get an error, so the main reason for that would be you have not yet downloaded the Google Play services. So in order to check if you have downloaded the Google Play services, you simply need to go to this SDK manager. So simply click this icon, and once you have clicked it, you will have an option which says launch standalone SDK manager. So we simply select this option, and as you could see, it is going to display us multiple packages which we have downloaded. So in that package, we actually need to go into the extras folder. So this is our extras folder right here, and in this we actually need to find a package which is called as the Google Play services. Now in my case, as you could see, the package has been successfully installed. Now if the package is not installed in your case, what you could do is that you could simply check this option and you could install it. And once it is installed, what you could do is that you could restart the Android Studio. And once the Android Studio is restarted, what you could do is that you could create a new activity which is nothing but the Google Maps activity, as we have done here. So now once everything is set up, the next thing which we actually need to do is that we actually need to get a key and we actually need to paste it over here. Now the significance for getting the key is that we actually need to obtain a permission from Google that we are using their maps. So in order to get a permission, what we need to do is that we need to go to Google. So we open up a web browser and search for Google Developer Console. And as you could see, the first link which pops up is going to be the link for the Google Developers Console. So you simply select it and you need to log in with your Google account. And as you could see, this is the interface for the Google Developers Console. Now you could see an option here, and actually it is going to show us the name of the current project. So I already have a project here, and in your case it might be a bit different, but as you could see, there is a down arrow right here. So simply select it and you will have an option for creating a new project. So simply select the option to create a new project, and let's name this as, and you could name it anything. So in this case, I'm going to name it, let's say, my new map project. Then click on create. And as you could see, the new project has been created and the name of our project is going to appear right over here. Now the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to create an API key. So in order to create a key, what we do is that we select this option which says enable and manage APIs. So on selecting this option, what we need to do is that we need to select this option right here which says Google Maps Android API, and that is because we are using the API, the Google Maps API for Android. So simply select this, and in there we are going to select an option which says credentials, and after this we select this option which says create credentials. And in this we go with the API key. So as we want to generate an API key, we select this option, and as you could see there are multiple options available here. So if you actually want to access the Google Maps API for a server, we could go with this option. If you want it for a browser, we select this option. For iOS we select this option, and for Android we go with this. So we simply select this as we are developing Android application. So once it is selected, what we need to do is that we need to name this key as something, and once you have named it, what you could do is that you could select this option which says add package name and fingerprint. So on selecting it, it is actually going to ask you two things. So the first thing is going to be the package name, which is nothing but the name of your package. So if we switch to the main activity, as you could see, this is the package name right here. So we simply select the package name, copy it, go back here and simply paste it. So once we have copied and pasted the package name, the next thing which we need to do is that we also need to copy and paste the SHA-1 certificate fingerprint. And in order to obtain this certificate fingerprint, what you need to do is that we simply need to go to the Google Maps API.xml file. So this thing right here which I have blurred is nothing but it is the fingerprint which we are going to use, and for security reasons I actually need to blur it, and that is because it is not actually safe to distribute your fingerprint with others, and the main reason being others could actually misuse our key. So we simply copy this, return back here and simply paste it over here, and then finally once it is done we click on this option which says create, and it is actually going to create an API key for us. And as you could see, it has popped up the API key. So we simply copy this API key, return back to Android Studio, and the next thing which we need to do is that we simply need to replace this thing right here with the key which we got. So I will simply delete it and I'll paste my key right over here. So once the key is pasted, we are good to go. So the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to check if this application runs, and that is because we need to check if the API key has been enabled. So once it is done, the next thing which we need to do is that we actually need to enable this key. So in order to enable it, we again go back to the Google Developers Console, then we go to Overview, again select this Google Maps Android API, and here we will have an option which says enable. So we simply select this option, and on selecting this option our key will actually be enabled. So we have successfully generated the key, but the thing is that we could enable and disable the key at any moment. So once it is enabled, you will have an option of disabling it. So that means our key has been successfully enabled. So once your key is enabled, the next thing which we do is that we run our application and check if our application works. And it is always better to run your application on the emulator so as to check if it performs correctly. And if your application does not perform correctly, that means you have missed something and you have done something wrong. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually create the API key which is required for using Google Map APIs in our Android application. So in the previous tutorial we have created this simple GPS application, and we have learned how to actually create an API key so that the API key can be used in order to access the Google Map API. Now after creating an API key and adding it and enabling it, the next thing which we need to do is that we need to add in some permissions to our application. So in order to add permissions, what we do is that we switch to this Android manifest.xml, And this is the manifest for our application, and here we are going to add in a few permissions. So the first permission which we are going to need is going to be the internet, as we need an access to internet in order to display the map. So we go right here and we type use this permission android.permission.internet. So this is the permission for internet. Then we close the tag, and after it we are going to access a new permission which is called as the access network state. So this is a permission which basically gives us an access to the network state so that we could actually display the map. So we type users permission android name android.permission.access network state. So after this, the next permission which we are going to need is going to be the access find location, but the access find location permission is already added by default. Now one more permission which we need is going to be the access course location. So we type android.permission.access course location. So once we are done with this, we are good to go. So now we just need to save the code, and we actually need to run our application. Now it is always better if you run your application on the actual device, but I'll try to run my application on the emulator and check if it works. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and this is what we get right now. So currently the marker on the map is pointing towards Sydney, and that is because we actually have it written by default inside our code. So if we switch to the main activity.java, as you could see, this thing right here, which is nothing but the method which says on map ready, it basically points towards these coordinates which are -34 and 151. So if you want to actually set it to your own coordinates, so what you could do is that you could search for your city or your location on Google, and you could simply copy the coordinates and you could paste your coordinates right over here. Now this thing right here is nothing but the marker. So this method is basically an add marker method which allows us to add a marker, and this option right here basically is used in order to specify the title of the marker. So in this case, in our case, the marker was pointing towards Sydney, so the text was specified as marker in Sydney. Now the most important thing about this is that if you are getting an error, you might have messed up somewhere. So you actually need to check a few things. The first thing which you need to check is that if you have added the key over here after the string name, and if you have added the key, the next thing which might have gone wrong is that you might have not included these permissions right over here. And one more thing which could go wrong in this case is that whenever we have created the API key, we might have actually created it, but it might not have been enabled. So we also need to check if the API key which we have created is enabled currently. And also if you are creating a new key and if you are enabling it, then we must give it a little bit of time so that the key could actually get enabled. So after it is done, the next thing which we check is that we check if we have added these permissions right here. And if you are missing any permission from this, then chances are your application might not run on the emulator. And also, if you are having difficulties running this application on the emulator, you could also run this application on your actual device so that it performs in a correct manner. So that's it for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we'll be learning a few more basic things about creating a Google Maps application in Android. In this tutorial we are going to learn how we could actually set this marker right here to our current position in our application. So for this, what you need to do is that first we need to select our location on the map. So make sure whichever country you live in or whichever place you live in, you just open up Google Maps in your browser, and the next thing which we do is that we scroll to our location. So as I live in this location, what I do is that I simply right click on it, and there is an option which says what's here. So we simply need to select this option, and when we select this option, as you could see, it is actually going to display these coordinates right here. So what we need to do is that we simply need to right click it, and we actually need to select these coordinates, and we actually need to paste it in our application. So select inspect element, and as we want to copy this latitude and longitude position, we simply right click on it, and select copy internal HTML. So once this thing is copied, the next thing which we do is that we return back to Android Studio and we paste the coordinates right over here. So once the coordinates are pasted, what we do is that we update the marker which we have right here. So inside the marker, what we do is that we write any text which we want to display. So let's say we want to display like I live here. So I type Ashutosh lives here. So once it is done, we are good to go. And also one more thing which I would like to mention is that as I have updated my location to my country, I have removed the Sydney, but you could also have used that because it's just an object name. But for the sake of understanding, I have replaced this object name by India and I've removed Sydney. And also make sure that you make relevant changes according to your country over here and over here. So once it is done, we are good to go. Now the thing is that when you run this application on your device, what happens is that your position would be displayed on the map, but it won't be like zoomed in at the current position. So what we need to do is that we actually need to zoom in the map automatically when it loads up. So in order to do that, what we do is that we use this map object right here. So we type mmap dot animate camera, and we are using the animate camera method as we need to animate the camera and make it point to the current location. And inside it we type camera update factory dot new latitude longitude zoom. So this is a method which we are looking for. So this method basically zooms in towards the current latitude and longitude. So the first parameter which we are going to specify is going to be the location. So we type in the created location, give a comma, and then we need to type in the amount by which we need to zoom in. So I'm going to type 12.0 and finally type an F for float. So once it is done, we are good to go. So once we run this application on the emulator, we are going to get our current location with the map zoomed in to our current position. So we simply save the code and we run our application on the emulator. So as you could see, our application is up and running on the emulator, and as you could notice, the marker is now pointing towards the location which we have specified, and also it is actually a zoomed in view of the map, and that is because we have added a special line of code so that whenever the map actually loads, the map is actually zoomed in to the marker position so that the marker is at the central location. So now if we click on the marker, as you could see, it says that Ashutosh lives here. So you could make a cool looking application wherein you could actually select the coordinates of your friend's house, and you could use the latitude and longitude position of it so as to display the various locations of your friends on your application. So that's it for this tutorial, and I hope you guys understood how to actually enter location of latitude and longitude in your application and display it on the Google map. So there are a lot of things which you could experiment with by using the latitude and longitude position. You could calculate distance between 2 points, you could display multiple points, and let's say if you have an application wherein you need to actually retrieve some data from database, so what you could do is that you could actually store in an additional field which is called as the latitude and longitude position, and when the data gets retrieved from the database, you could actually display the position in your Android application. So there are multiple number of applications for using the Google APIs for Android applications. So if you are developing a taxi application, you could use this, and if you are developing any location based application, you could easily use this API so as to make your application much more attractive and much more beneficial. So thank you very much for watching this tutorial, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thank you.